Hi everyone, and welcome to this episode of Fan Art Friday. This week I'm working on a drawing of Ciri from The Witcher 3. I really wanted to work on some more video game fan art, and I wanted to practice some more realistic skin tones with the Copic Markers, so I felt like this was an awesome opportunity for that, especially seeing Ciri being suggested quite a few times. I really wanted to work on some more Witcher fan art, so here we go. For the initial pen outlines of this drawing, I used a sepia coloured Copic Marker that's 0.05mm, so it's extremely fine, which meant that I had the extra control over the lines. Adding thicker lines around the outlines of her face, adding some thicker lines to her eyelashes, and just generally adding more detail to the prominent features of the drawing, and also using the lines to focus where the shading would be later on in the drawing. And once those outlines were completed, it was time to focus on the most difficult part of the drawing, and that was the skin tones. I started by using a pinkish white to add the first layer, adding the shaded areas, especially along the right side of the face. Once I was happy with those first layers of shading with the pinkish white marker, I then used a mixture of pale grape and light grape. These are my colours of choice for adding realistic skin tones to a drawing like this, and I think they work really well. I also wanted to add some variations in the skin tones, especially around her cheeks, to add some pinkness to them, so I used a blush marker and pure pink, and then used the pinkish white over the top of them to blend those colours into the skin tones, and just kind of faded them outwards. Another colour that I also really love using with skin tones, and to help add some warmth, especially to the cheek area, is a pale heath marker. I've been using this a lot in my drawings recently, and I think it works extremely well with skin tones like this. For the colour of her eyes, I used Nile green and horizon green for the green tones, and I used a raw silk to add around the outside of the pupil, just to add a bit of colour variation in them that I saw in the reference photos. To add the extra dark shading around the eyes, I used Cool Grey 3, 5 and 7. To add some extra texture to those areas, and to add some extra texture to the skin around the eyes, I used a black Prismacolor pencil, and I was actually really pleased with the texture the pencil gave to this drawing. I think I will definitely try using some more Prismacolor pencils in drawings like this in the future, especially seeing the texture it gave to the skin around the eyes here. For the colour of her lips, I used a mixture of tender pink, rose red, dark pink, and I used a layer of light grape over the top of that, making sure to add the texture of the lips with the darker colours. And I also added some extra shading to the upper lip with a Cool Grey 5. I also used this Cool Grey 5 around some areas of the face, underneath the eyebrows and on the right side of her face. I think this works really well in adding some more depth to the drawing overall. To add some extra highlights around the face and to show up some of the prominent features, I used a Uni-ball Signo broad pigment ink white pen to add some white paint highlights to her eyes and to the tip of her nose and to her lips. And also to add the freckles to her nose and cheeks, I used a pale grape marker. I also decided to use a white Prismacolor pencil to add some small highlights to some of the areas, especially around her jaw and the underside of her nose. I think these worked really well in contrasting with the dark shading, and overall just adding extra depth to this part of the drawing as well. For the colouring of her hair, I used a mixture of Cool Grey 1, 3 and 5, starting off by using the Cool Grey 3 to add the first layers of shading and fading them outwards towards the highlighted areas, especially on the top of the head. I made sure to add some darker shading to the hair around the side of her face to show up the areas that have kind of underneath the folds of hair, and I think this really works well, especially on the highlighted side of the face, in adding that contrast and just varying up the depth of those areas, especially having the layers of hair over the top that are much more highlighted. I wanted to fade that shading outwards as well, so I used the Cool Grey 1 over the top of that. And then to add some darker shading, especially around the sides of the face, I used a Cool Grey 5. I tried not to use too much of this because I didn't want to make the hair too dark, and especially wanted to keep the hair on the top of her head much brighter and more highlighted. To add some extra touches to the hair, I used a black Prismacolor pencil to add some texture and to add some shading to the undersides of some parts of the hair. And then I used the highlighter pen to add some strands of hair, especially going in front of her face and over one of her eyes, and just adding another layer of hair going over the top of some of the details, and to just look a bit more realistic. After that, the drawing was completed, and overall it took about 3 hours to complete. I had so much fun working on this, and it's always really fun to attempt realistic skin tones with these markers, and I really want to try it again for future videos. So if you have any more suggestions for future videos, then please let me know in the comments below. I really appreciate that you want to see me work on these drawings, and I always have so much fun working on them. If you enjoy videos like this, then make sure you're subscribed, and any likes, shares, all that kind of support is always hugely appreciated, and it means so much to me. If you want to follow me on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram and follow along with the progress photos throughout the week, then be sure to check out the links in the description box below. And once again, thank you so much for the support on this channel. It means so much to me, and I can't wait to work on the next video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all soon.